Following is a multimedia presentation that is a supplement to the Sustainable Country Living book. This topic is the food grid, gardening, the Mittleider method. This topic dovetails with Chapter 27 in the book, Food Grid Gardening, Mittleider Method. About a decade ago, I attended, with friends, the Prepper Fest in Arizona. It was at the Arizona State Fairgrounds. This event was very popular, and it had many vendors and exhibitors and presenters on different topics. Two seminars that I went to that were of particular interest to me was one by Joel Skousen. He's the author of the book Strategic Relocation. We talked about Joel Skousen and this book at the beginning of the book Sustainable Country Living. Another seminar that I had great interest in was the Mittleider method of gardening. After the passing of Joseph Mittleider, Jim Kennard, his friend, took over the responsibility of propagating the materials and research of Joseph Mittleider. This topic we're going to look at in this presentation is focusing on the Mittleider gardening method. Growing food like your life depends on it.
About 8 years ago, I decided that I needed to have skill sets that would allow me to do things and be less reliant on the world around me. One of those skill sets that I wanted to reach or wanted to be better at was the ability to grow my own food and to grow it in enough quantities to feed myself and the family. Tried a bunch of different methods. Ultimately, I ended up at the Mittleider gardening method, and I haven't looked back. We've been growing a Mittleider garden for 5 years now, and truly believe it was what I was looking for in the way of that particular skill set.
Growing food like your life depends on it. This individual, during COVID, was wanting to be more independent of the world's systems, and he was experimenting with different gardening methods. Ultimately, he chose the Mittleider method for gardening and has been doing it for 5 years at the time of the video with great success. Mittleider's early life.
Thanks for joining me as I present the history of the Mittleider method, the man and his legacy. This is Jim Kennard, president of the Food for Everyone Foundation. In the late 70s, Jacob R. Mittleider's book, More Food from Your Garden, which is now called Mittleider Growbox Gardens, became very popular, and my family used it to create an extremely productive container or growbox garden on a sunny 20 by 30 foot part of our yard, and we practically lived out of the garden for 6 months that year. We were sold on this amazing system of growing. In 1978, Jacob Mittleider moved from Loma Linda, California to Salt Lake City, Utah, and because we only lived a mile apart, we soon became acquainted. Our family continued to grow great gardens every year, and in 1989 I acquired a 3/4 acre parcel of land adjacent to Utah's Hogle Zoo. I created a large Mittleider soil bed garden on a half-acre of ground, installed the recommended automated watering system, and then asked Dr. Mittleider if I could put his name on the garden. Because 700,000 visitors to the zoo each year saw the garden, and I wanted to promote his methods. Jacob gave me permission to advertise his name so long as I maintained the garden according to his standards. So we became much better friends, as he would occasionally come to the garden and work with me and invite me to his home to work in his garden and learn from him. In order for you to understand and appreciate the uniqueness and importance of the Jacob R. Mittleider system of family gardening, you need to learn what influences and experience shaped his life, created his unique skills, motivations, and passions, and made it possible for him to do what no one else has ever done with family food production around the world. Let me take you now on a visual journey as we look at the history of the Mittleider method. Jacob was born and raised on a farm in southeastern Idaho by faithful Seventh-day Adventists, and he remained a devout follower of that faith throughout his life. He did not like farming and vowed he would never be a farmer. So he attended high school at the Gem State Academy near Boise, Idaho, and learned the profession of baking. He married, moved to California, and became a baker. But in 1943, Jacob lost his job as a baker because he had a short temper and got into an argument with the manager of the store, and he walked out. Then he had to learn another profession. The only other thing he knew was what he learned as a boy on the farm. He didn't want to farm, but he was desperate because by this time he had a wife and 2 daughters. So he started learning how to grow flowers. He learned fast. He picked the brains of the best growers in the Imperial Valley of Southern California and hired the best soil lab on the West Coast, called the Matkin Labs, and put them on retainer. He managed to learn how to grow flowers and became highly successful, and probably fairly wealthy. Retail nurseries ordered his plants from as far away as Louisiana, and he even had a contract with Sears to ship 5-ounce containers of 9 plants, which he called magic mitts, by flying tiger lines to Sears stores all over the country. Something happened, though, before he was able to get that contract into operation. Because of ulcers, the doctors removed half of his stomach. He had been working 18 to 19 hours a day and living on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. The doctor told him he was not going to live long unless he made some major changes in his life. Jacob made those changes. He got rid of the business and decided to devote whatever time the Lord would give him to helping others, giving back, and teaching and blessing the lives of people around the world. He was 43 years old at that time, and the Lord gave him another 43 years of life in which he devoted himself almost exclusively to blessing mankind.
Jacob R. Mittleider became an international agricultural consultant. In 1978, Dr. Mittleider moved from Loma Linda, California to Salt Lake City, Utah. Jim Kennard and Jacob Mittleider became friends. Jacob vowed never to be a farmer growing up, even though he grew up on a farm. As an adult, Jacob became a baker. And after many years of doing that, he changed careers to become a flower grower. And then he had a major life health challenge that changed his course of his life. Mittleider's initial teaching gardening.
He started in Oregon by creating a big garden at the Adventist Milo Academy there. And he grew in this greenhouse you can see in the background during the following winter. He grew corn, all kinds of vegetables, potatoes, and all the greens. This was an amazing project. We still know growers today that were students of Jacob Mittleider back in those early days in Oregon. As a matter of fact, you may have heard me talk about the amazing commercial tomato operation of Victoria Roth in Bend, Oregon. She worked as a young girl with Jacob Mittleider at the Milo Academy. About this time, Jacob went to the people at the Adventist Loma Linda University and told them that he thought it was senseless for people to be starving around the world when the God he worshiped would not create an earth that could not feed the people. They basically told him to put his money where his mouth was. He visited 24 countries over the course of 6 months and came back more sure than ever that there was no excuse for people starving. He said, "They have land, sunlight, and water, and they waste all 3. So the folks at Loma Linda sent him to one of the toughest places on planet Earth, a place called Papua New Guinea, where they were cannibals. By the time he got there, these people had stopped eating each other. At the point of a gun, the Australian military had stopped them. Here's what they were trying to live on. This was a row of sweet potatoes. Pathetic. At the high elevation hospital, it took 22 months for them to harvest 1.5 tons per acre of sweet potatoes on this ground. Between nutrient deficiencies, diseases, and horrific weeds, these people were really struggling to feed themselves. As a matter of fact, the Adventist hospital and school on that island nation were about to be closed down because they couldn't grow enough food for their students. This is what their crops looked like. Here's their cabbage with terrible deficiencies. Such a waste. Their sweet potatoes were skinny, and there wasn't much nutrition in them. The school had to provide 5 pounds of sweet potatoes per student each day for them to have enough nutrition to stay reasonably healthy. By the way, as Jacob visited all those countries around the world, he would see people who were sick and starving, and they would often have doctors and bush hospitals to take care of the people, but everywhere he went, he never saw anyone taking care of the plants. There were no plant doctors. And he determined that that's what he was going to do. See these men? They had changed from being fierce, scary-looking warriors to becoming gentlemen and educated and good. But they were still living on those pathetic sweet potatoes. Here's a different location, but with the same problem. Here the garden doctor enters the scene, and he changes all that. He eliminates the weeds. He makes the garden a thing of beauty, and he starts to feed the plants. He starts by growing healthy seedlings. Those propagated sweet potato seedlings are fed a complete, natural mineral nutrient mix that gives the plants everything they need. Voila! Now you see beautiful, green, large, healthy plants. A magnificent, productive garden. Now the same men grow sweet potatoes so big they can only hold 1 or 2 in their arms. Here is Jacob Mittleider's wife Mildred and a boy and girl holding monster-sized sweet potatoes. The boy's named Silas. He was Jacob's yard boy. Silas went on to finish school. He worked hard, got a career, and today he is known as His Excellency, Sir Silas Atapare, President or Governor General of Papua New Guinea. That's not all that happened. Back in those days, there were hardly any Christians on the island nation. Today, over 10% of the population are Seventh-day Adventists. 25% of their parliament are Adventists. And people say the Adventists own Papua New Guinea. In a good way. They've educated the people, given them health and longevity. These are wonderful, amazing things, all because of the gardening Jacob Mittleider introduced, and, of course, the labor and great work of many devoted Seventh-day Adventists who ran the school and the hospital.
Mittleider's initial teaching gardening started at Milo Academy in Oregon, a Seventh-day Adventist high school. This gardening project became very productive and famous. Later, he approached Loma Linda University about being able to use his gardening methods to help people in other impoverished parts of the world. Loma Linda University eventually sent Mittleider to various countries around the world to be able to learn how to grow gardens so they don't have to be starving. His first location was Poipu, New Guinea, and this gardening project proved to be very beneficial. When he got there, the sweet potatoes were very unproductive and malnourished. By the time he dealt with the sweet potatoes, they were healthy and large. The gospel of the Seventh-day Adventist Church spread in New Guinea as a result of Mittleider's gardening. Mittleider's grow bed gardening.
Here's the island of Fiji, where Jacob went next, and the pictures look the same. Just pathetic plants and weeds everywhere. When Mittleider got hold of it, this is what the garden looked like, with tapioca growing neck-high. It was an amazing transformation. Next, he went to Okinawa. This is an island that is now a part of Japan. The big city of Naha has more than 1 million people in it. They have no normal place to grow, only a flat roof, patio, or a driveway. Look at the forefront of the picture. You'll see something that looks like a box. Here you can see the start of what we call a grow box garden. That garden became a thing of beauty and productivity right in the middle of the city on a big parking lot. Everywhere Jacob went, he taught adult students who studied and worked with him for several months. By this time, he had created an excellent course of study, and with the collaboration of Dr. Andrew Nelson, a highly respected educator, Jacob authored the college-level agronomy textbook, Food for Everyone, which is still used in several locations around the world today. Here you see tomato plants that were grown vertically in one row 8 inches apart. Such tremendous yield. Nothing like that had ever been seen before. Here you see a book called Let's Grow Tomatoes. Remember that Jacob started out as a baker. He did everything according to the recipe. He documented everything he did, and he was always experimenting and trying to improve. When he made improvements, he documented them. And when he wasn't out in the world blessing people's lives directly, he was home in his little place in Salt Lake City writing books. You see the mountain rising up immediately right behind this place? This was a difficult place to grow, and the people were having a hard time. This was another Adventist school, and Jacob immediately turned it into a gardening mecca with tons and tons of good, healthy food for these students. Understand that so many of the students are strictly vegetarian, and so they were dependent on this garden for their food. Jacob did an amazing job there. Once again, he taught them how to grow healthy seedlings. This gives you a big 4 to 6 week head start. You don't lose plants to cold soil or diseases or bugs. You have 100% healthy plants going into your garden, and they grow fast so that they're in the garden a shorter time, and you get them out and harvested before diseases or bugs can hurt them. He also taught them how to grow inside a greenhouse, and he was growing these tomatoes to maturity right there in the greenhouse. He also introduced something different in Hope, BC. He grew in narrow raised beds in the soil with great success, and this is what we mostly use today. Jacob determined that this was the best of all worlds, 18-inch wide soil beds that were raised and level with ridges. And you see the students transplanting into those beds here. He introduced something here that we've seen previously. We have what is called a T-frame with arched PVC pipe on it and covered with greenhouse plastic. It was used in Trinidad with great success, and we used it in Popayan, Colombia to protect the plants from driving torrential rains. In some places like Arizona, Texas, and Mexico, it is used with shade cloth to protect plants from temperatures above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a great thing for you to have in your garden. Here is a picture of an in-the-garden greenhouse that has the plastic coming all the way down the sides and the ends. This will allow you, in temperate and cooler climates, to grow your tomatoes and other vining warm-weather crops until November and even December. There are many benefits of the T-frame with the arched PVC over the top and covered with greenhouse plastic, which was first introduced in Trinidad and Tobago 30 years ago. Notice the plants here. They're beautiful, close together, with uniform growth. Dr. Mittleider documented many years of learning in this amazing 250-page book with hundreds of pictures like you've just seen. I love that book. That was the book I used to create my half-acre garden at Utah's Hogle Zoo, and I had that garden for almost 20 years. I wore out more than one grow bed gardening book because I always had it in the garden with me.
Mittleider's grow bed gardening. He went to the island of Fiji, and there you've seen pictures of tapioca plants. Then he went to Okinawa, Japan, and used the grow box garden on a parking lot. He then wrote a college textbook called Food for Everyone. His next international journey was to Zimbabwe, where he taught them how to grow tomatoes. That resulted him writing a book, Let's Grow Tomatoes. Then he went to Mount Hope School in British Columbia, Canada. He taught them how to do seedling production and greenhouses and raised rows. Then he went to the island of Trinidad and he taught them how to do T-frame shelters. As a result of what he learned, he wrote a book called Grow Bed Gardening. Mittleider, the Garden Doctor.
Jacob was next invited to go to communist Russia. Back in 1989, Mr. Gorbachev created something called glasnost and perestroika, which basically opened up Russia to the rest of the world. They allowed the Adventists to open a small college if Jacob would create an agriculture program. He did. They gave him this little dacha, and he turned a mess very quickly into a beautiful and productive garden. The communist agricultural agents would come into his garden and steal his plants. They would stick them under their jackets and take them back to their labs. This went on for several weeks, and finally they approached him and said, "You've got to tell us what you're doing here. We have never seen such beautiful, green, healthy plants." He was then able to teach them proper nutrition, proper feeding of plants, and they ended up sending students from their most prestigious ag school, the Timirazzi Academy, to his 3-month program. We would hear those students, after they graduated from the 3-month class, say, "I learned more about growing food in 3 months than I did in 5 years at the academy." These are just a few of the things Jacob did in Russia. In the 2.5 years between the time when Jacob Mittleider got there and when communism fell in August of 91, Jacob and his student graduates were able to help millions of people learn how to grow food. You see the first Zaoksky Russia greenhouse in this picture. This is a typical Mittleider greenhouse with what is called a continuous ventilator across the top. We build this way all over the world because people don't have electricity and fans, and that section at the top opens up, so the warm air goes out and cools the greenhouse naturally. The sides also roll up, so between the sides rolling up and the top venting the heat, this is a great greenhouse. Jacob Mittleider's agriculture program in Russia ended up with 117 acres, all given to him by the communists. Over the course of the last 26 years, they have taught over 1,000 students. And I believe there are tens of millions of people whose lives have been impacted directly by this gardening method in the Russian Commonwealth countries. I have been told by graduates that some of them have gone on to have as many as 50,000 people in their influence growing Mittleider gardens. They've told me that the Mittleider method is the most popular and productive method of growing in many regions of the Commonwealth countries of Russia. Talk about changing people's lives. I believe this humble man did more than giant armies could do in doing good. Here's another book called Gardening by the Foot, which Dr. Mittleider wrote about that time. It's also an excellent book with hundreds of pictures and illustrations on growing in containers. The cover picture is of a Russian garden. He also wrote a 3-volume set called The Garden Doctor. This is an absolute treasure that teaches and illustrates nutrient deficiencies for all 13 nutrients that plants require. This, plus the gardens he created and the students he taught, convinced the Russian Communist government to honor an American, probably the first ever, for his work in agriculture. They made him the featured speaker at the Yalta Conference of Agriculture Ministers, and they praised his name. The government agriculture minister on national television said, "The only food grown in Russia that's fit to eat is grown in a Mittleider garden." It's no wonder that Zaoksky graduates were able to spread the work so fast. They would announce a Mittleider gardening seminar, and they would have 1,500 to 2,500 people show up for the day. As a matter of fact, Jacob almost died from a brain aneurysm over there during the winter of 1991. Normally, if an American got sick, he was as good as dead. The communists could not admit that their medical system was inferior to the West's, so they would tuck him away somewhere and let him die. Not with Jacob Mittleider. I was told Mr. Gorbachev sent his personal limousine to get Jacob out of the country. and that they had a couple hundred college students clearing the runway because it was such a terrible stormy night. They got him out, and the doctors at Loma Linda University in California saved his life. He ended up living for more than 15 years after that.
Mittleider, the garden doctor. Next, he went to communist Russia. Sayovsky Adventist University was established, and Mittleider's method of gardening was the most used in many parts of Russia. Gardening by the Book and The Garden Doctor were books that followed. Mittleider was honored as a featured speaker in Russia. Jim Kennard and the Mittleider Legacy.
By 1998, I had been with Dr. Mittleider to Russia for a month and had helped him on another major project in Utah. I then retired from other full-time pursuits and determined to devote myself to carrying on Dr. Mittleider's work. We've created a website, digitized all of the books and training materials, and conducted numerous months-long humanitarian training projects in countries including Turkey, Armenia, Georgia, Madagascar, and Colombia. We also conduct free group gardening seminars around the United States. The Garden Doctor's work goes on, and it is corroborated today by the best doctors in the world, who say and who prove that healthy food makes healthy people, and healthy plants are the best source of good food for human beings. The 10 digitized Mittleider gardening books, along with 9 subject-specific gardening manuals, which are individually searchable, have been compiled on one CD known as the Mittleider Gardening Library. And this shows you what you can do in your own backyard. This garden is in southeastern Idaho, and they wanted to try the boxes. They have a fabulous garden, as you can see. They grow virtually everything, and they feed their family out of that small garden. They were using 2x2s as frames for their vertical crops, and we have substantially improved that with T-frames now. The Mittleider Gardening Course Book was the last book Jacob Mittleider wrote before his death in May of 2006. The Foundation continues to conduct gardening training projects, make improvements to the method, and document our findings with updates to this book. This book is the recipe for a great garden in any soil, in any climate.
In 1998, Jim Kennard dedicated his life to carrying on Dr. Mittleider's legacy. He established the website growfood.com. He digitized all of the training materials that Dr. Mittleider had made. He then did additional humanitarian projects around the world. Then he did free seminars around the United States. The Mittleider Gardening Library is a collection of everything that Dr. Mittleider made, and it's available on one CD. Jim Kennard's foundation is called Food for Everyone. Online Mittleider Method Course.
Hi, I'm Lucinda Bailey, co-owner of Texas Ready, and we teach the Mittleider Gardening Method. In fact, I taught 40 different methods of gardening and the Lone Star College program. But when we came across the Mittleider method, we converted all of our training to it because it's so quantifiably, certifiably organic and productive. And we want you to have the benefit of the knowledge that we've been conveying coast to coast. It's time to grow food in your own backyard. And we've had kids as young as 8 years old successfully grow 4,300 pounds of food to support their family of 4. We want to show you how you can save a lot of money and get nutrient-dense food. We'll teach you such things as how to produce 4,300 pounds of food, of nutrient-dense produce, out of your own backyard on as little as 1/20th of an acre. You can learn how to grow seedlings from seeds. We will teach you how to gather seeds from the plants that you grow. We will show you how to save the seeds properly so that they don't hybridize. We'll show you what nutrition needs to be given to the plants so you can obtain the high yields and good harvests in short periods of time. We're going to show you what to plant, when to plant it, how many to plant, and how many calories you're going to get out of the deal. Did you know that you need 1 million calories per adult? We're going to show you how to do it as though you didn't ever garden in your life, and you will be successful day one. Our students from coast to coast are saying that same thing. They could not believe how much they were able to produce their very first year of gardening. So no matter where you are on the spectrum of learning how to produce food for your family, the Mittleider gardening course is for you.
Online Mittleider Method course. Lucinda Bailey was an instructor that used over 40 methods of gardening in the Lone Star College program. When she discovered the Mittleider method, she abandoned all those other methods and converted only to teaching the Mittleider method because it was quantifiably and certifiably organic and a productive system. Texas Ready was an online Mittleider course that Lucinda Bailey offered. Mittleider fertilizer recipes. One of the key elements of the Mittleider method is the combination of ingredients that are used to fertilize the plants. These can be done either in a dirt environment or in sawdust and sand because the fertilizer is liquefied and spread on the plants through an irrigation system. So the pre-plant mix comprised of 20 pounds of garden lime or gypsum, 1 pound of Epsom salt, and 1/4 pound or 4 ounces of borax. Then once the plant is established and transplanted into the garden, then you would have a weekly feeding mix, which is comprised of 25 pounds of all-purpose fertilizer, 13-13-30 or up to 17-17-70, 4 pounds of Epsom salt, 10 ounces, 1 packet of Mittleider micronutrients, which can be ordered, and 1/2 cup of perlite to control moisture, which is optional. Now there's 2 methods that can be done in terms of the bed in which you would plant these seedlings. One would be sawdust and sand as a mixture, and one would be in soil. And either can be done. But this particular individual is explaining that if you're going to do a sawdust method, that there's a particular kind that you need to use to be successful.
You do not have to grow in sand and sawdust to grow a Mittleider garden. For some reason, people seem to think that you have got to have sand and sawdust to grow a Mittleider garden. You do not. Okay, now with that said, you need the right sawdust. What we're looking at here is sawdust from a sawmill where they take trees and they saw it into lumber with a circular saw. And that is this here. The stuff on the left, and there is my pencil to kind of give you a size reference, is out of a wood shop where the guy has a table saw and other similar tools. This seems to be the type of sawdust that people are getting, and they're having failures with their seedlings that they're growing it in, and they're not having much success. This is not the right sawdust. It is far too fine. You don't have water able to adequately get through this, and oxygen doesn't go through it as easily as this to get to the roots of your plant. And I understand that this is all a lot of people can find. You're going to have difficulties with it. You don't want anything that fine. Cabinet shops and the like, that is the type of sawdust that they're going to have. It's not right. You want the stuff from an actual sawmill. It is a blade, a circular blade that is feet across. It is going to give you the larger size of shaving that you want for your garden. When you combine this with sand, you get proper drainage and you're able to get oxygen to the roots of the plant so that they thrive. If you use this, you're going to run into compaction issues. The nutrients, the water, and the oxygen is not going to get to the plant, to the roots, as easily as this.
Mittleider gardening can be done with sawdust and sand. and the correct sawdust is from a sawmill, not from a woodshop table saw. The coarser sawdust allows for proper drainage and feeding of the fertilizer liquid. And here's a testimonial of an individual who claims to not be a gardener, who tried the Mittleider method with great success.
There are actually several different items that are important to having a successful Mittleider garden, and we call it the 6 steps to successful gardening. If you have not tried gardening, if you've watched lots of videos and think, man, I'd like to give that a try, but you don't know where to start, and you don't have a lot of money to start with, I promise you the least expensive, most productive way to garden is the Mittleider gardening method. You can do it in the dirt, you mix your own fertilizers, so it's very inexpensive to give the plants all the nutrients they need. You can get everything you need for the fertilizers at your local nursery, feed store, or big box store like Home Depot or Lowe's, with the exception of the micronutrients, but you can easily order the micronutrients right online. If you're concerned that you have a black thumb and you can't grow anything, I started doing this in November of 2012, just a few months ago, and everything I have planted has just grown amazingly well. You can do this, you can garden, you can be successful, you can feed your family from your backyard. Don't hesitate. I encourage you to get the Mittleider gardening course book. That's your step-by-step in the garden handbook. It tells you exactly what to do, whether you're going to be growing in the dirt or in a raised box. Get your micronutrients and your other fertilizer items that you need to fertilize so that your plants will have all the nutrients and nutrition that they need, so your fruits and vegetables will have amazing flavor. So don't be afraid of gardening, or if you want to try a different way of gardening that really gives you high yields, anywhere from 6 to 10 times what most people are getting, give the Mittleider gardening method a try. I wanted this to be a potato update, but I'm so excited with the results because I just don't know anything about gardening. I tell people I don't know anything about gardening. I have no certification, I have very little experience. All I did was read the book, buy the CD library, and get the nutrients and follow the instructions. That's all I've done. It's all in the book, it's all in the nutrients, and you can be successful.
LDS Prepper is a YouTube channel, which is a Mormon individual that focuses on prepping. And he attempted to use the Mittleider method to garden, and he self-proclaims that he's not a gardener, but you can see from the video that it worked really well. He claims it's the least expensive approach, and it is 6 to 10 times more productive. Even if you're a black thumb, you can be a green thumb by using the Mittleider gardening course book. So that's the Mittleider gardening method. It's been used by probably hundreds of thousands of people, and it is nice to see that Jim Kennard, though a Mormon, is carrying on the work and the legacy of Joseph Mittleider and not hiding the fact that he was a Seventh-day Adventist all of his life. To be aware of new videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the Preparing for the Time of Trouble channel. For more free videos and downloadable audio podcasts, as well as handouts, go to www.preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com. Topic categories include recordings of live seminar presentations, country living, sustainable gardening, homestead remedies, how to be self-sufficient when the grid goes down, wild edible and medicinal plants, hydrotherapy, and end-time Bible prophecies. To take advantage of these free resources, go to preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com.